Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Taxi and Regulatory Committee meeting on Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025, here at County Hall in Esk. Certainly hope you're not being too badly affected by this heavy rain today. Croeso cynnes i'r cyfarfod pwyllgor ar gyfer taxis bore yma. I'm Tudor Thomas. I'm chair of Taxi and Regulatory Committee, and obviously I will be chairing the meeting today. One thing I want to say is I want to sort of remind people that we will obviously, as normal, go to the sort of the Nolan principles of being fair, transparent, and importantly, letting everybody have an opportunity to speak and to express their views, and also the fact that as chair of the meeting, then obviously everything will come through me, and people obviously are not allowed to speak without me allowing them to do so. And I certainly don't want it breaking down into a more or less a conversation. It's not the conversation here today. It is an official meeting of Monmouthshire County Council. And I will obviously adhere to that fairly strictly. Okay, we'll go to the agenda, and first item is apologies for absence.
There's an apology from County Councillor Simon Howarth, Chair.
Thank you. Secondly, declarations of interest. No. If you feel it arises, then obviously please tell me. We've got a number of minutes now to go through. I'll go through them obviously sequentially. So if we start with the minutes of the meeting of Taxi and Regulatory Committee held in the Council Chamber, County Hall, on Tuesday the 16th of September. Any comments or thoughts? Nope. Yeah, no, there's no problem. Councillor Easton just joined us. Right, we'll go through to the next one, then the minutes of the meeting of Licence and Gambling Committee held here on the 9th of September. Any issues or comments? We then go to minutes of the meeting of Licensing and Gambling Committee held on the 22nd of September. No comments. Minutes of the meeting held here on Friday, the subcommittee meeting, Licensing and Gambling, on the 10th of October. Don't see any hands up. Minutes then of the meeting of Licensing and Gambling Committee held here on Friday, the 21st of November. Any comments? Can I take those now then as accepted?
Happy to second those minutes.
Yes. Does somebody propose them, Joni? Yeah, so Councillor Easton will propose them, and seconded by County Councillor Chris Edwards from Chepstow. We move now then to the main agenda item, and this will take the bulk of the meeting today. It's the only substantive agenda item, and this is the subject is the Taxi and Private Hire Policy and Conditions 2026. And we're going to look at this, and the purpose of the meeting today is to consider the proposed amendments to the Council's Taxi and Private Hire Policy and Conditions 2026, further to the recently completed consultation with the trade, and the recommendations that, 1, consider the responses following the consultation and the advice provided in 3.4 by licensing, And then secondly, members approve the new policy, and the conditions came to come into force on the 1st of January 2026, attached as Appendix A. Now, this came before us a while ago, and we had quite long discussion, particularly about certain aspects. But obviously, we'll have a report from the Principal Licensing Officer, Linda O'Gorman, and then we'll have discussion and questions from councillors. Councillor Martin Newell, you got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt your briefing at the start. This is the first meeting of this kind that I've attended as part of this committee. Could you just confirm, do we vote on each individual item or the report as a whole as we go through the recommendations? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Newell. As far as I'm aware, we vote on the whole report after we've gone, I say after the principal officer's gone through it for licensing, Linda O'Gorman. Then there's room for discussion and any questions and any clarification. And then we'll get to a point where the vote will go up. Wendy will put up the vote in the chat box, and we will then vote on that, and we will obviously either accept it or reject it. But it will be the report in total. We won't be doing sections of it. Hopefully, as the discussion goes on, anything we can.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Easton's got his microphone on as well. As much as I love looking at him, he's the only one we can see.
You read mine on the dance.
I'm just logging in now.
No, you read you.
Oh, that one, sorry.
Yeah, Nicholas, somebody said that they can't see me on.
Because Councillor Easton had his mic.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So without further ado, then I'm going to hand over now to Principal Officer for Licensing, Linda O'Gorman, and she will take us through the substantive part of the agenda today. Thanks. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Today this has been brought back to the committee to, as you quite rightly say, to try and improve the whole of the document, the whole of the policy itself, not just the red areas. So it'll be as a whole. The reason why the policy has been amended and reviewed is a number of recommendations from the Department of Transport, also Welsh Government recommendations, which is highlighted in 3.5 to 3.7 of this report. So we work closely with Welsh Government on this report, because the idea is that there will be sort of national standards in time throughout Wales. And also we work closely with our neighbouring authorities in Gwent, because we have a formulated sort of Gwent licensing policy, just so that we're all sort of trying to aim for a very similar policy. Obviously, everything won't be exactly the same, because it's dependent on geographical areas and the need for each local authority. But the aim is to try and do national standards. So that's the reason behind that we initially looked to review this policy. It was heard then on the 16th of September. I wasn't in attendance at that meeting, but obviously I submitted the report there. So what I did was actually look at the report, the meeting itself, and so the body of this report is answering a lot of the queries that was raised throughout that meeting. And also it was approved on the 16th of September for it to go out to a consultation. So it went out to consultation, and then we had 3 responses from the whole of the taxi trade, and those are also included within this report. So I'll quickly go through some of the queries with a view to then, if there's any further questions, I'll aim to answer it so that we can actually sort of move forward on this policy itself. So I broke it down to the councillors that asked queries, and I've summarised basically sort of the queries that was raised. So the first one from Councillor Alistair Neil was, do we retrospectively check existing drivers with the policy? So it was trying to say that any changes to the policy itself will kick in really when it's either a grant of a brand new one. So after, if it's approved today and it comes into force on 1st of January 26, it'll be any new applications after that date, but also it'll be amended to the new policy conditions on renewal of the licence as well. So that was answered on that first query. The second query was, do we continue to check suitability? Yes, the answer to that is yes. As soon as a licence is granted, there's always a number of checks and monitors. So we have drivers who have 6 monthly DBS checks. We have regular sort of investigatory, or if any complaints come through. We have a number of safeguarding meetings throughout. They have to have refresher courses on safeguarding as well. So we do regular spot checks. So it isn't a case of once a licence gets granted, that's it. We sort of forget about them until the next sort of renewal date. So it's always ongoing. So any complaints that we get, we follow up. So with regards then to Councillor Christopher Edwards, in relation to the overseas check of certificate of good conduct, will the licence section provide the risk assessment? Well, the answer to that is we wouldn't provide a risk assessment. What we would provide would be all the evidence. If for whatever reason they didn't have, unable to get an overseas check, we would provide all the evidence as to why that isn't the case, how long they've been in the country for, if they've had any further information since they've been in the country. And the committee is the place where the decision has to be made, not the licensing officers. So the risk would be, a decision that would be made on that day by members, given all the evidence that's put before them. But obviously we will strive to get as much evidence as possible for you to make sort of the right decision on whether a driver is fit and proper. So the question 2, is the onus on the driver to report medical change? The answer to that is yes. If they fail to do that, they would be in breach of their licence conditions. And if it's found later that they didn't inform us, then obviously the matter would be likely to be heard at committee, given the circumstances. Each one will be treated on his own merit as to why that wasn't submitted to us. Question 3 then, when would suspensions go on then? Under Section 61 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, we can take into account suspensions. And again, it will depend on the circumstances as to the suspensions. But what you've got to bear in mind, anything that goes on NR3S, it doesn't get shown on that public register, which is only accessed by licensing authorities, not members of the public. It's only a one-liner that will say this person was suspended. And if a person applies to a different authority, what happens is, as it is in our authority, we would go in, we would check the NR3 register to see have they had any doings with any other licensing authority. If there was any cause for concern, we would then again in touch with that licensing authority to submit the matters behind that thing. So it doesn't actually get automatically shown what the case was. It would depend on the circumstances, and each licensing authority would liaise with each other. And the reason behind that is fit and proper test doesn't just take into account convictions. It can take into account all manner of how that person behaves. So if you had, say, 15 suspensions that was flagged up on there, then this person is clearly not doing the paperwork very good, and they're not doing the necessary checks that they should have been doing. So obviously alarm bells would ring, and then that matter would again be brought to committee for a decision to say, are we going to take this person on because of the fact they've had, say, 10 or 15 suspensions in a given space of time. So that's the answer to the NR3S. CCTV, how long? Well, we recommend that if we are not putting in a policy where they have to have CCTV, what we've put in the policy is that if somebody wants it, how they need to comply really with our policy. So if somebody does go down the route of having CCTV, we have got in the policy that they keep footage for 28 days at least. So that if we get a complaint or anything, then we can get in touch with that driver. There is no maximum time because it automatically gets overridden after the 28-day period anyway. So there is no maximum time. And because we are not the authority insisting on CCTV, we are not the sort of systems administrator, the data controller in effect. The data controller will be the driver himself because they've decided to put that in place. So they have to abide by ICO who oversees that. So the next one then from Councillor Tony Eason, what are the recordings used for? If a person wants to have CCTV, they may want to have it in place because a lot of people work late at night, they're on their own, it could be a number of reasons why they want it. So it gives that element of safety they may feel if they want it to deter crime or fear of crime. So it's a number of things actually written in the policy where there could be avenues that they may decide to go down the route of having CCTV. Some other drivers may not work late at night. They may just be doing sort of school runs and things like that and think, I don't need the CCTV, you know. So it is dependent on each driver's circumstances and what they feel they want, their own individual needs. So the second one was the language proficiency. So I've tried to answer that as well. We are required, you know, if somebody wants a policy in Welsh or if they want application forms in Welsh, that we would provide that. There is a section on English proficiency. And also if they wanted Welsh too, they can. And the reason why the English proficiency is because it could be a number of things. They have to be able to liaise with passengers, either through safety concerns or if they overhear something which gives rise to safeguarding measures. So that's the reason why it's recommended that they have good use of English language throughout when they are carrying passengers, basically. So then Councillor Ahmed Watts, I think the first question was, do overseas check to apply to anyone who is not British? No, that isn't the case. What the policy states is that if anybody spent sort of 6 months or more residing outside the United Kingdom while aged over 18, then obviously we would need that sort of further check, and this would apply to a British and non-British citizen. The second query, I think it was, what if there's no response from the embassy and it takes a long time, fear contact in the country? It could be a number of reasons, and it's recognised on that. So Welsh Government, and I've been liaising with Welsh Government as well on this matter, have issued sort of guidance, and we've followed that guidance that is in the Welsh Government recommendations and actually inserted that within our policy. So it basically, in the event that an applicant is unable to get it, and I take you back then to the previous comment that was made, then we would look at all avenues why that wasn't the case, why they couldn't get it, how long they've been in the country, has there been any other additional information. We'll do as much as we possibly can. We'll do a Section 115 with the police, anything that we can possibly get to try and achieve as much information as we can to bring to committee if a person's unable to do it for whatever reason, because they spent 6 months or more from the age of 18. So that, I mean, we've got a number of things I've actually said in there, which says it is a duty of the local authority in Section 51 to assess if a person is fit and proper. And one of the tools to assess if fit and proper is, of course, the criminal record check. But like I said, it may be occasions that, for whatever reasons, that the country in question are unable to provide it, or like I said, it could be a fear of them going to those countries. It could be a number of things, and we recognise that also. But we will get as much as we can to risk for you to look at that risk. Is it too much of a risk to issue the driver's badge, or if you feel there's enough information to issue the driver's badge, and each one will be treated on his own merits as to the conduct of that person. So Councillor Jane Lucas, I think, asked about forward-facing cameras, and I think it was just to sort of clarify really that the dash cams are external-facing images only, and the CCTV is the only one that goes internal, and it would depend on. It'll be sort of visual, but they are able to do sound if a panic button is hit either by the driver or by the passenger themselves, should the need arise for whatever a reason. Councillor Jay McKenna, I think it was the age gap as well on medicals. That is followed by the Group 2 medical, which is for HGVs and PSV drivers, and it's the standards are recommend that we follow that, and all authorities actually follow that Group 2 standards of testing. But I'll take you back then to if somebody did have any medical changes that I mentioned previously and they failed to notify the authority, then and we find out about it, then the matter would be deferred to committee anyway, because that person failed and they breached their conditions. So the other thing was the test in the vehicle that was concerned of other authorities' tests. And again, I'll take you to the Welsh Government aim of having national standards. We have a number of tests, and I've mentioned that on point 2 of the query by Jane, that we have a number of testing given the age of the vehicle. And also we do spot checks as well, sort of safety checks. And I'll take you back to the Welsh Government trying to do the national standards. So I answered as much as I could and on the queries that was raised on that day. Following then, I'll take you to the consultation and the responses back. So I tried to number it with the queries raised. So we had 3 responses back. The first one is quite a lengthy response. So, and I think the person on the very first one was saying, are we, is it right that we are exempting people from getting overseas check? No, we're not exempting people from getting overseas check. We are requiring they get the overseas check, but as mentioned previously, there may be occasions where they are unable to get it for whatever circumstances, and then we would have a look at how they went about trying to get those checks and why they can't get it. So it's not a case of, no, we say that you don't have to get it. That isn't within the policy itself. And 1.2 then was on equality and standards and legitimate expectations. All drivers are expected to do an enhanced DBS check, and the overseas if they spend 6 months or more. So there are no exemptions to an enhanced DBS check. That's the first aim that we always do, which takes me back to the fit and proper test. 1.3 then was national safeguarding concerns. All drivers conduct safeguarding training with refresher training upon new renewal. No exemptions are given regarding the safeguarding training, so that is part of them actually being able to get their badge. And I'll refer you to the point I made with Alistair Neil about the other checks that we do continually monitor drivers, vehicles and operators once they've been licensed. The reason why the English test, because that is going on 1.4 on the query raised, was language competency, and I'll take you back to the comment I made on Councillor Eason, the need why it is recommended that we have an English language because of safety concerns, because they listen to conversations, and if there's safeguarding issues, they are duty bound to report it to us that they've overheard something and they've got concerns about, say, a regular passenger, or if there's somebody is got a medical emergency or in danger, they need to be able to converse in English. So that's the reason behind that. Then the next one, which was on point 2, which was CCTV. We are not saying what technology somebody has to use. What we are saying, though, is that whatever technology that is being used for CCTV, it has to be Windows compatible, basically, so that if a local authority needs to look at footage, that we are able to download it and view that footage. So it's not saying what they have, because we wouldn't sort of go against the market out there, and somebody may want to get a cheaper sort of version as opposed to a more expensive version as well. So we wouldn't say what CCTV package, but we do request us to be able to download footage. So the roof sign I'll mention a bit further down, because it's quite a lengthy, it was a separate one on the roof sign. Then data protection is going on, and as I mentioned earlier, the duty is on the actual licence holder if they decide to have CCTV, to comply with the ICO, and they have got a self-assessment check, which I've done the link for, so you can see when you go into it what the ICO, but it's up to them to be the regulator, not the local authority as such, because we are not the data controllers in this aspect. And similarly, we wouldn't, once we license, say, an operator, on an operator base, they may get sort of sensitive information. They are still duty bound by the ICO of how they treat that sensitive information, as they would be liable as well. So regardless of CCTV, you've got that element as well. So we wouldn't be the data controllers. So the FAIR policy, this isn't a matter really for the policy itself. The FAIR is when a tariff wants to be increased, and if you recall, it was quite some time when we did do a tariff increase, and I think it was just after lockdown where petrol prices was going up and various other elements. So there's a number of elements that we have to take into account, like wear and tear, distance and various things like that, and that was updated. So what we would do if somebody puts in a request for a tariff increase on taxis is that we would consult with all the Hackney trade, because what you have to bear in mind, Hackney carriages, taxis, we set the tariff as a local authority, but with private hire vehicles they can charge whatever they want to, and a lot of people who have Hackney carriages don't want it increases because they oust themselves out of the market for a private hire vehicle. Sorry. Yeah. Would you want to introduce yourself to?
Yes. I'm Subrata. I do taxi in Abergavenny.
Right.
So I'm here to present myself.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we're just going through the.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're just going through the policy now. The
So-
licensing officer. Obviously, we've started at 10 o'clock, so
Yeah.
you've missed part of it.
Yeah, I really apologize for it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So just for clarity, Mr. Patty, your response number 1 of the report, and I've just literally gone through a number of elements of that. The only thing perhaps, if if Mr. Patty wants to speak about his representation, is perhaps have 5 minutes so we can see the response of the reports, because even though it's on the, have you had a chance to have a look at the report and the responses?
No, I didn't. I saw it last time when I sent it to Taylor.
Right.
Yourself, yeah. I do remember what I said roughly. Is
Well, yeah. You allowed to speak?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to put your mic on, because we've got people online and people in the chamber. If the mic's not on, then they cannot hear you. And if you introduce yourself now press the button and it goes red. If you introduce yourself and say why you're here, and then if you want to, put your point of view briefly.
Right. Good morning, everyone. This is Subrata. I'm a licensed taxi driver from this council. I'm here to represent myself and also a few other issues which should concern the general public. To start with, is to do with the checks in terms of whether a person should be suitable enough to hold a license. I didn't know that it actually came from Welsh Government. But I do not believe that we should waive the checks, which is the overseas checks for criminal history, which I went through myself. And I think it should be kept as it is, given all the concerns going on at the moment. And also I did see some news article about some incident involving taxi driver based in Cardiff. I'm not too sure whether anyone have seen that. So I think that should be kept in place. And I do understand Mr. Watts did raise it, that what if someone cannot get it? Well, it's not one and only thing you can do in life though. There is other jobs you can do, but the priority should be protecting the public. And also, if someone goes through these checks, it actually kind of makes them respect the system as well. Like they have actually gone through a rigorous vetting process, and they should respect the whole process. And the councils, do really apologize. The the council's duty to protect the public in that sense. So I believe that should be kept in place.
Okay, thanks. Back to you.
I was just wondering, Mr. Patty, obviously, you know, we've looked, the members have had a copy of your response to the consultation. So I was just, actually, when you came in, I was going through what licensing advice is to your comments that you've made. And perhaps if I read that first, as to the response, and then you can come back in, because some of the stuff that you're raising now, we've answered basically throughout, okay? So if I read that through, and then if you've got any sort of questions or anything you want to raise with regards to the response to your consultation, by all means you can then. Perhaps that'd be a better way of doing it, because it'll explain then how we've responded back. Okay. So the first query that you raised, and I'm sorry for repeating myself, members, but it's from Mr. Patty's purpose here, was the exemption of overseas check. The policy does not exempt the overseas check. That still is retained. What the policy is stating, there could be a number of reasons why a person is unable to get that overseas check. Could be dependent on the country, fear of going to that country, and there'll be a number of avenues that we would take. In that, we would look at the like in the event that the criminal record check couldn't be done, we would look at how long that person's been in the country for. Have there been any sort of further wrongdoings by that person? We would do sort of background checks as much as we can on that person, and the matter will then be brought to the committee for them to decide, is it too much of a risk for this person to be licensed, or you've got enough evidential information, and each one will be treated on his own merit, that they are happy to grant it. So it's not a case of we're doing away with the overseas check. That will still retain. And similarly, with regards to all drivers, they are expected to do an enhanced DBS check. So that really answers 1.2 of your queries that was raised on this consultation. So all drivers are 1.2 will be having the enhanced background checks. The third one in 1.3 was your safeguarding concerns, and I think that sort of really sort of boils down to the overseas check element as well. So the safeguarding, all drivers are required to conduct safeguarding training. That won't change as well, and they'll also require, once it's on renewal, to have a refresher training. And then throughout, if anything is overheard within the vehicle itself, then obviously a duty bound to sort of notify a local authority they've got concerns of a passenger they may be picking up with regards to safeguarding. So safeguarding is high on the agenda, and if we ever get any information on safeguarding, then we work closely with social services, the police, and a number of other bodies that we have. So that answers your 1.3, okay, and 1.2. And then you had a query raised on language competency. The reason why that we request English is because that is a recommendation. The reason behind that is that a person may have a medical episode in your vehicle, so they need to converse properly with the driver. And also it could be, as we mentioned just before, that they could overhear a conversation and it could raise safeguarding concerns. So it is a recommendation that have some level of English competency, all right, on the test that sort of requires of a driver. So the next query was raised on technology neutrality. Now, we're not saying that what system somebody has to use. If they want to put CCTV in the vehicle, it's entirely up to them what system they use. What we do, however, recommend that whatever system that is used, that you are able to download to Windows, so that if a local authority needs to look at footage for whatever reason, that they are able to view that footage. Okay. So your roof sign, I'll go on to the roof sign in a moment, because you've got a separate sort of thing on the roof sign itself. Data protection, you've mentioned about what you feel a local authority could do. The actual onus is on the licence holder for them to comply with data protection, be it either CCTV, because they are the data controllers, so they are governed by the ICO, and in the report there's a link to how a driver or a vehicle owner or operator would look at the self-assessment at ICO, and they are the regulators, not us. If it was us saying you must have CCTV, then obviously the onus would be on the local authority to get that information, put everything in place. And for that reason, I mean, even if you think of a private hire operator who keeps sensitive information, booking details, the onus is still on them to ensure they don't sort of pass that information on. So and they'll be regulated by the ICO, regardless of CCT. That is a matter of course. It's not up to the local authority. So that's a response on that. The fare policy as well. It's not a matter for this policy. With the fare policy, that'll be a separate issue. It'll be a case of you as licence holder actually go into the authority with your recommendation. It then goes out to consultation, and there's a number of aspects that get looked at: wear and tear on the car, petrol prices, number of things, other local authorities, what they charge, and there is a tariff of like, and Monmouthshire is quite high up actually on the charges, and you may find that once a person puts in a recommendation for a tariff increase, that when it goes out to the trade, because of the fact that we set the tariff for taxis, whereas private hire can charge whatever they want, so they may feel that they will outmarket themselves because the private hire are undercutting them, basically, you know. So there's a number of things that, you know, you may yourself want it, but others may not, you know. So it would be a consultation on that, but it wouldn't be a consultation on the policy itself. It'll be a consultation on the tariff itself. Okay, so that would be separate. So I've explained that to him. So with regards then to the formal objection to the roof light, what I've response to your questions on the queries on that. Local authority under Section 47 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act, a district council may attach to the grant of a licence of a hackney carriage under Act of 1847 such conditions as they consider reasonably necessary. And the reason we have the roof light is given in response to yourself as well. The change in report requests the following. So if I go through it sort of bit by bit, is why we want the roof light changed as well. We are putting in the policy, the roof light must be illuminated, glow when dark, whenever the driver is available for immediate hire with the council area. The roof light shall display static, not scrolling, legible wording, namely taxi facing forward in Welsh and taxi rear facing. Other wording or phone numbers are prohibited on this roof light. The wording must be a minimum of 6 centimetres in height and 20 centimetres in length. The vehicle taxi meter must be connected to the roof light at all times, with the roof light not illuminated when the vehicle is hired. The policy proposal considers reasonable necessary. The wording being static and under a minimum font will ensure a person can instantly recognise they are hailing and or boarding a taxi. The request is not having any other wording is again to have an instant recognition that is a taxi, because what we found on reviewing the policy is you could have advertisements, you could have a little tiny in italics, it's not quick, easy to read. You could have a smaller sort of taxi, you know, and I think you point out yourself, you know, you could have it at any size and there was nothing in it. So obviously that brought thinking, well, actually, you're right there. We need to have it much clearer. All right. So you've got introduction and immediate effect. With regards to the policy, it's not grandfather rights, because what happens if a policy gets adopted, and say it's adopted today and it comes into force on 1st of January 26, those who are new applicants for a licence will have to adhere by the policy after 1st of January 26, and it will kick in really for all the others who are currently licensed when they are up for renewal. So then they will be governed if they want to, because it's a renewal, even though it's a renewal, is actually classed as a fresh application in effect. So once they come up for renewal, if they want to renew, they have to abide by the new policy and conditions that's been adopted. All right, so there is no grandfather rights as such. So you've got then legitimate expectations and reliance. The request to remove advertising on the roof sign and to restrict it to no other wording than taxi and taxis for the reasons I've just given is so you don't detract that this is in fact a taxi and you're not looking for that wording of taxi, basically. The vehicle owners are still able to advertise on the vehicle, so we're not saying they can't advertise their company, because we've got a section that is in the policy itself which actually says that they are able to advertise if they, automatically their company name and things like that. If they go have other forms of advertising, they have to put a request into us just to make sure it is suitable that's going on their vehicle itself. Now, you're saying that it's ultra-vires. Well, I take you back to section 47. We are able to put in policy and conditions, so we're not acting ultra-vires. We have the legal powers to put in what policy and conditions that we want, that we think is reasonable. Okay. Procedural fairness. We did carry out consultation, and that took place between 22nd of September to 31st of October. All licence holders were informed. Is also placed on our website, so everybody had an opportunity to come back to that consultation. And this report actually had 3 responses, 1 from myself and 2 from another further drivers. Proportionality and economic impact. So looking at your thing there, the proposal is considered proportional as it deals with the roof sign only and does not require vehicles to be changed to taxi-style vehicles or colour-coded, because a lot of authorities actually take that step further for a taxi, how a taxi should look. They say they've got to be black cabs, or they say, like in Cardiff, they have, I think, white roofs. And I think in the Vale of Glamorgan, they have it the other way around, is one way or the other. But they have like a colour coding for taxis. But we are not sort of putting that financial impact on vehicle owners who've got taxis. What we are purely doing is saying we want the roof light changed. Okay. So the next one in, you've got arbitrary and retrospective effect. The policy proposes not to penalise historic licence, so that is not the issue here. The proposal is to improve the recognition by means of an improved roof sign, which is clear and indicated as taxi at all times when being hailed. This will assist in public safety and users will instantly recognise it as a licensed taxi. You've got technical and operational superiority of digital signage. The wording taxi and taxi will remain in place at all times, so it will always be recognised as a taxi. The roof light will not be illuminated. The roof light will not be illuminated if containing patterns when it's hired. The illumination of the roof light does not detract that as a taxi. So basically what I'm saying there is that wording is always on there, whether the light is on or off, and is only on if it's being used, So that's the response to that. So in conclusion then, the reason for the change is stated for about, there's a number of elements that we've had issues with of roof signage that we've decided to put changes within the policy itself. So I've obviously got 2 other responses, Chair. So I don't know if you've got, these are by other drivers there, so I don't know if Mr. Patty wants to sort of say on the response that we've done with regards to your particular consultation.
Yes, if you put your microphone on, you can come back on that for a maximum of 10 minutes.
Yes. I do appreciate the understanding went behind the safeguarding and criminal history verification aspect of the policy. Also, in the policy, it does state at some point to apply for a license within this county council. You can hold a driver's license, UK full, for 1 year, then you should be eligible to apply. So may I please request that there be further amendment placed in policy explicitly, rather than someone actually applying for the license and then they cannot provide any overseas criminal history checks, and then they get told off, that, well, we don't have enough data on your behavioral patterns or anything, or they can sign up to DBS Enhanced on the first day they come to the country, and you would have no idea what kind of behavioral pattern they might put through whilst working as a taxi driver or even in their personal life. And yes, also in terms of language competence. can we suggest any defined certifications for any individual who do not come from a country or they do not possess a strong command over the English language, and they can go through IELTS, which I did go through previously. So that would help massively if that can be put in place in terms of any issue, or it will be individual based. And data protection, the main aspect I wanted to address is for Hackney carriages. They do take the bookings on like paper notebooks, and I do treat customers' data rather seriously, because I can't find anyone just by their first name and last name. And I think the council shall take this approach, because if anything happens to any taxi drivers, they lose the data, or the customer's data get leaked and they get abused because of the data breach, then it will be published as the Monmouthshire Council taxi drivers failed to adhere to ICO regulations, and this has happened. So it would be more like a reputational harm that might come through. Fair policy, I do agree with Linda what she said. Well, I do apologize for that, but the cost of everything has gone up. I've been paying my mechanics £60 an hour plus VAT. So a service for my car last year was £308. That's just normal servicing, and everything else has gone up in price. And in terms of the roof sign, Linda would probably be aware that I have invested significant amount of money, to be precise £680. That was discounted, and I have actually gone through a lot of issues myself. Sometimes in daytime, people jumping in front of the car when I'm driving past Tesco. The light was off. Nobody can tell whether the taxi is for hire or not. So that was one aspect. And also wedding bookings. Sometimes people trying to jump in my taxi saying, "Oh, are you a terrace taxis?" and trying to open the doors. And I do not want anyone going through that kind of experience. So I went through 3 or 4 months of research, and even after I purchased my roof sign, I went through relevant legislation, asked Gwent Police and all of that, and I have abandoned the roof sign so that when it's not available for hire, nobody can see it's a taxi written, like kind of indirect signaling people that they can hire the taxi. So there is no confusion left in there. When it's not for hire, they cannot see that the taxi is for hire or not. In daytime, that is the difference it's going to make. And also it has got different aspects in terms of advertising, which I'm not exploring at the moment. There will be advertising standards authority I will need to go through. It can work alongside other local businesses when they book taxis or anything. And this is not for a single operator to do. That's why it's not implemented. And I do think it has got a scope. And if we are sticking to the very old, I'm not sure how long those roof signs have been in the market, and we're not exploring the technological advancement that the whole world has to offer, unfortunately, I do not believe that will be a wise investment of my time being a stakeholder. No, that's it.
Okay, thanks for that. Did you want to come back at all, Linda?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The recommendation, I'll try and answer, I've just jotted down bits and pieces there. The recommendation for they have to hold a driver's licence for a year is because you could have somebody at 17 passing a test, and we request that sort of applicants are over 18, and also it would give them a year length of time as a new driver before becoming a taxi driver, and that is a sort of a national standard really, that we have the year-long sort of element before they can apply. The other query you raised with regards to the English language, with the taxi test before they come on board is conducted by Torfaen Training, so that deals with a number of authorities within the Gwent Authority region. And they are a training body, basically, which we felt is better for them to conduct it rather than licensing us, because we are not trainers, you know. So once they go to Torfaen training, if they feel that somebody is having difficulty with the English language, they are given the opportunity to do a course with them on the English language to sort of get them up to speed, to enable them to become a taxi driver. So there are other elements that they take into account, like if somebody is dyslexic or they, you know, have difficulty with tests, we have more online tests with Torfaen training as well. So there's a number of things that they take into account when somebody tries to come on board, to try and make it as fair as possible to get somebody into employment, really, by having enough use of the English language for the safeguarding reasons that's needed for taxi. So that's the answer to that bit. Data protection. It is with the ICO, there's a link in the report which says what's expected of anybody who keeps documentation. So like I said, I'll take you back, the onus isn't on the local authority, it is the ICO are the regulators. So it wouldn't be a comeback on the authority, it would be a comeback on the individual if they release data that they shouldn't be releasing, or they didn't store it securely, basically. And the ICO recognised that, because they recognise you could have a large firm or you could have a one-man band with one vehicle. So they look at all aspects and they look at the risks themselves with them as the regulators. Tariff, like I said, it's not for this policy. If you want to make a tariff increase, by all means write in with your recommendation, and we'll start the consultation process on your behalf. Okay, if you've got concerns it's not meeting, you know, your needs of your business, basically. With regards to the roof light, I dispute that a roof light is required, and that is actually on the taxi legislation itself. And the reason being, you could have a taxi parked at a rank, or you could be hailed from the side of the road. You haven't got to necessarily be on a rank, as opposed to a private hire vehicle, which has to be pre-booked. So you have to have it instantly recognised, or actually, I'm hailing down a taxi here. And the reason why we've gone away from the scrolling roof light, and I appreciate, obviously, you've bought a scrolling roof light, is because of the fact that you can have it scrolling before eventually the word taxi comes up. So we've retained the traditional, it's illuminated when it's for hire. You've got, so it's taken off, sorry, once it's for hire, and is illuminated when you are able to sort of hail down a vehicle. And you've got clearly big enough wording so people who, any sight issues or whatever, can clearly see that that, in fact, is a taxi. And it was brought to light that we've looked at a number of our taxis out there, and it is quite unique in Monmouthshire in that we got the Welsh forward-facing and the English pack. And I think it was brought in at the time when Near Steadford was on in Abergavenny. That's where it's held back to. And a lot of them actually prefer, the members of the trade prefer to have the Welsh facing forward, because it's equally recognisable that that's a Monmouthshire vehicle, because not many of them have got the Welsh facing forward, you know. So they wanted that retained as well. But it is actually to clearly see that you can hail a taxi, the roof light is on, that clear wording is there and is constant there as well, that they can hail it down. So that's the reason behind the changes, really, in our policy, to make that much better, because we did notice there's a little bit of advertising. The advertisers are getting bigger and bigger of the taxi firm, and then the right one was getting smaller and smaller, is a taxi, you know, and we don't want that. We wanted to make somebody able to see it straight away.
Okay, thanks for that. You know, just to clarify for your benefit, obviously, you know, we're grateful today for you, excuse me, for your response to the consultation and coming in. But at the end of the day today, obviously this licensing committee will decide on what, you know, as the taxi and licensing committee for Monmouthshire County Council. The committee will decide on, you know, whether the policy goes forward. And obviously everybody here has heard, you know, your rationale, you know, your reasons for some of your, you know, objections. But I'm going to move on now. Unless, Linda, have you got anything else to add?
No, Jill, you want me to say response 2 and 3 quickly, because there's not much.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, we had a further response as well, and I think mainly the one was actually concerned on private hire vehicles having roof signs on the vehicles. We don't permit that, and I sort of said that the roof-mounted sign is liable to indicate it's pre-booked only. You know, you have some that out there, and we don't allow that because we don't want it to get confusing with the actual taxis itself. So we don't permit that. So we'll go back to that objector to see which ones are out there, so we can have actually see to get them taken and take the action and get them to take it down anyway. And the third one, I think the third one said he found it quite a large document, and that he wasn't sure what was being changed, but we did sort of go back to him to say the things that's changed from what you've currently got is actually the bits in red. So if you want to just focus on that, but he didn't want to make any further responses to it, Chair.
Right, thanks for that, and thanks for your response to the meeting that we had and the comments that councillors made back on September the 9th. Can I go to members of the committee now then? Are there any comments or queries, questions you wish to raise? Councillor Easton.
Yeah, thank you. It's just to do with the CCTV retention policy. How do we monitor? How do we control that? You know, there's a certain period of time where you must keep it. How do we know it's going to be removed after a certain period of time? How long can it be? Basically, what control have we got?
What the policy is not saying that they've got to have CCTV. It's saying that if they want it, that this is how they should comply with what we need, you know. So if we needed to view footage, so we've got in there is 28 days that we say if they've got it in there, they must keep it for 28 days of footage. And that is so that if anything happens, then we can view that footage for whatever, and also the ICO, if they wanted to do it as the data controller, they could view it as well. It automatically gets taken off anyway. So that's why I say there's no maximum period, because it should delete, and we would only expect 28 days retention.
But that's a normal system of
yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. We go to Councillor Jane Lucas.
Morning, everybody. Thank you ever so much for the report, responses, etc. Very interesting. Thank you very much to Mr. Patel for coming in. I just had a few questions, actually. Firstly, you won't be surprised to hear, in reference to the driver's licensing, and you said that they must be 18 and hold driving license for 1 year. Yet, in DVSA licensing, we actually expect people to still be probation until they hold the license for 2 years. And what that means is that they can only get 6 driving points and they're returned back to driving tests. So I just wanted to know, could we not relook at that a little and be a little more pragmatic and responsive, and treat them with that respect that people should have their driving license for longer than a year, for that very reason, really. We also, you said changes, and that they wanted the changes, i.e. in particular to the headboards being Tasky on front and Taxi on the rear. And I'm assuming when you said that they wanted those changes, you're referring to those that responded to consultation. But there was only 3 consultations responded, or am I missing something there? I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just hearing what you said and asking the question, were there a lot more, and how did you get more information from it? And the other question was spot checks. You've said that a number of occasions. Spot checks. When are the spot checks done? Who does them, and how often do they get done? So basically, how much reality is on the spot checks? Please. Sorry to be awkward. Just want to ask those questions. Thank you very much.
Linda, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, we got the U is sort of the national sort of policy. Obviously, if when a person applies after they've held a driver's license for a year, DVLA license for a year, if there's any points on that license, obviously, then that's when it kicks in with the suitability test, which is recommended by the Institute of Licensing as well. So it'd be another fact. Obviously, it'd be in their favour if they had a clean licence, but obviously if they go over certain points, then the matter would be brought to a committee to decide, should we give this person the driver's badge anyway because of the nature of the work, and that will be whether it's a brand new, just recently sort of a year of actually having held in a driver's license or not. So if the point starts tallying up, then it would be brought to committee. So like I said, that is sort of the national standards anyway. And like I said, if there's anything that happens through that year period, then it would be dealt with accordingly, whether or not they should have it or not. The response to the consultation, what I meant by they was in favour of it, is when it first came in with the Welsh wording I was referring to, which was a number of years back. And because, like I said, it was done at when the Eisteddfod was in Abergavenny, and sort of comments that was received was, yeah, we're glad we got the Welsh forward because they know it's our Monmouthshire taxis. So it's not for this occasion. The only the consultation for change on the roof light is still having the same Welsh facing forward and English backwards. So that hasn't changed for a good number of years, but is actually to make the font better and clearer and to avoid any other information being on that roof light other than those wordings. So that was meant by that. So we have consulted with the trade, but 3 came back. Spot checks, as you can imagine, we have got only a small team, and we have officers sort of operating quite a vast area in Monmouthshire. We do conduct regular checks with passenger transport unit at schools. And then it could be other operations with DVSA we've done in the past and with the police. But we also do sort of when we're walking around town looking at other elements, say licensing act venues or anything like that, then we would automatically look at the taxi ranks as well to see if anybody's parked up, see if there's a different taxi on the rank, that sort of element as well. And we've gone in touch with authorities if there's other vehicles using the ranks as well, because that we get a number of complaints on now where people park up where they automatically assumed that even if they are a disabled badge holder that they can park on a taxi rank, which isn't always the case. So we try and work with the trade. We get a lot of information from the trade when they are, if they feel other licence holders are now acting accordingly, we get a lot of tip-offs as well, so then we go out and investigate.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions or issues? Councillor Jackie Strong.
I just wanted to say what a comprehensive report it was and how pleased I am to see how Linda and her team have responded to some of the issues that we raised back in September. I think that's really quite reassuring for me. And also the fact that you are responding to either trade, other taxi drivers that are concerned about people not sort of behaving in the right way, or their issues about the sort of state of their taxes or whatever, and possibly I guess you probably get complaints from people using taxis and members of the public as well. I just wanted to thank you and your team, really. I think it's really comprehensive. It's clarified for me which bits that we as sort of the Monmouthshire sort of licensing sort of body need to comply with Welsh Government, what we are doing to actually make sure that we're compliant, really, and I just wanted to thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Easton, do you want to come back?
Yeah, it's in the main bulk of the report. It's to do with the licensees, their self-reporting, for example. We're relying on the drivers to self-report. For example, it says drivers should notify the licence authority of any voluntary interview by the police within 48 hours. Shouldn't we be looking to have the police to inform us that they've carried out such an interview for whatever reason? And the other one is to do with the suspension of a vehicle. Do they get a licence for a vehicle? Is it unlimited? How do we monitor that situation where there may be a problem with the vehicle and they don't report it? How do we monitor those sort of circumstances, situations?
Yeah, Linda, come on.
Yeah, with the police information, it's not a recognised job in effect. Taxi drivers, they have to automatically do it. They look at it when, say, they get arrested at a police station. they have a look at the proportionality. Do they inform local authorities? But we do work closely with police licensing, so we do get to hear about it. And like I said, the onus is on the driver, and because we've got 6 monthly checks as well, it'll pick up all manner of the elements that they may have been arrested for, you know, so we've got the enhanced check on that. So even if they didn't, they may be a matter of months, but we will catch up with that person if they haven't disclosed something that they have done. And we would, like I say, and we would be brought back to committee because they didn't inform us in the given time scales, and are they fit and proper. So we would assess and get all the evidence, and we would then, before coming back to committee, we'd do a 115 to get the background of the case as well, that they didn't report to us. So it'll be a number of things that it wouldn't get overlooked eventually.
But if in that 6 months something goes wrong, what responsibility have we got and they got?
They got the responsibility to notify us, so they'd be breaching their conditions for starters, but we liaise closely with the police. They do tend to inform us if they say somebody's been arrested as a taxi driver in your area, you know, so then we would look at it much further then. With regards to suspension, suspensions would be used if you wouldn't have an open-ended suspension. You would always have a date where it would end, that suspension. So if, like, say, a vehicle is unfit for whatever purpose, you would say, right, you've got X amount of days, you give them a warning letter, the suspension, then it would go through committee as well, so either the chair or the vice chair, to say we want to suspend this vehicle because they haven't either submitted a test to us or a number of things, and then we would lift that suspension once that test is submitted to us, or the suspension would end when the actual licence ends, and then it would just be taken off our books, basically. They wouldn't be able to use that vehicle. Similarly, if you had somebody who, say, for example, failed to give us a medical, we would say, you're going to be suspended, you can't drive until we get your medical in place. And so you would use it as a means of getting that paperwork in more so. If it's something so detrimental, you wouldn't go down the suspension route. You would then bring the evidence to committee to say, should this person still continue to hold a badge? Yeah.
So the suspension applies to the driver?
It could be all elements. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Go to Councillor Newell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report as well. It's really interesting report and very thorough as well. Just a couple of small points. I'm in agreement with Councillor Eason. I'm always concerned, and I work in financial services, about any industry that has to rely on self-assessment. I have huge concerns on that, and as a council, I think we need to be stricter with our rules and regulations, both to protect drivers, because we are turning into a bit of a litigious community these days, but also to protect passengers. There's all sorts of accusations flying around. So I think just the video camera thing, I'm not, maybe next year when this is reviewed again, we can make it a recommendation or mandatory that recording equipment is available in taxis, because I think everyone needs protecting. I did write something down about driving tests as well. And again, this may have already been covered, but we got a driver coming from another country who's taken a driving test in another country. Now, they may have successfully applied for a UK driving license, but what tests do we carry out that they're suitably qualified to drive on our roads? Because we can go across Europe, and you drive in Paris, for example, it's different to driving in Cardiff or wherever on the planet. Driving conditions are completely different. So what guarantees can we put in place that the driver is competent to drive on our roads, and especially carry a passenger, when all they've had to do really is apply for a British driving licence? And again, thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks, Councillor. I'll hand over to the licensing officer.
Yeah, I take your point on sort of a self-assessment, but then I go back to that. We have changed the frequency in line with the Department of Transport, and that was done a while back, on how we do DBS checks, because it used to be that they would have one at initial application, and you would have another one 3 years down the line when it was due for renewal. So we changed that to up the DBS checks to the 6 months for that very reason, You can't always rely that somebody's going to say, well, I've done something wrong here and it may affect my driver license, with your authority. So, like I said, there are elements in place with the police as well that they would notify us, but it's much more frequent as the DBS as well. So it is to try and avoid the self-assessment, issues that if they don't come back to us. And as soon as we get wind of it, the person will be brought to committee anyway. The other one then was, I think it was the DVSA, wasn't it? Sorry. So the DVSA, if they it would be a matter for them if they think a person is able to go on the road regardless of the taxi sort of element, that they are able to drive in the UK. So we rely on the DVSA saying they are able to, sort of drive in the UK. We have got driving testings within our policy, in that if somebody, which was in line really with the recommendations as well, I think from the Institute of Licensing, that if somebody accrues points, or if you feel that the driving standards up to scratch, that we can request as a committee that they take a proficiency test in driving as well. So that's actually in the policy itself. And I take on board your point regarding CCTV in all vehicles. In an ideal world, we would like that, and it's something that could be looked at later. And it may be something that will be mandatory conditions when Welsh Government do the sort of national standards eventually. But what we want to try and also not do is put financial burdens on one-man bands. Large firm may be able to do it, but it's something that we will constantly review as well, because we want safety not only of the driver but also of the passengers as well, really, with regards to CCTV.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Jane, do you want to come?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on that, actually, if I may. I get what Linda was saying, and thank you very much for all your answers so far, about cameras in cars, in taxis, and the CCTV. For me, if that's part of the legislation that you require to operate in Monmouthshire, and we state it as such, then that is it. I mean, they've got to buy a car, to purchase a car, to run a car at a certain standard, to put a CCTV camera in, isn't that much more? And actually, it's supposed to be a professional trade, and why would we not want them to behave in a professional manner? So I have to agree with Councillor Newell on that one. I feel that there is a real element of that we could perhaps be making our standards higher rather than lower. In reference to the driving licence, well, I would love to see all taxi drivers be reassessed, but that's my opinion, and I'm only what I do for a living. But there you go. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Linda, do you want to come back or not?
Yeah, like I said, with the CCTV, that's something that could be looked at sort of a later stage, of the possibility of CCTV becoming mandatory, and that is something that we would look at later on. And then it would obviously change the data controller. As I mentioned, we would be the data controllers because we've insisted on the CCTV in the vehicle, so the local authority would then become the data controller. So it's that element we'd have to look at, and we'd have to consult as well if everybody wanted the CCTV, so we'd go down that route again if it comes to that with regards to CCTV. But like I said, we're not sure what the mandate, the national standards will be. It may be that in time as well, everybody would need to have CCTV because of the very safety purposes as well. So we take on board your comments on that, because like I said, our aim is to try and get safety of not only the users of the vehicles, but also the drivers themselves.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's back to CCTV. If a passenger doesn't want the CCTV on, are they able to ask a driver to switch it off? We don't know why people get in taxis There may be various reasons which they may not want to be known. What's the position with that?
Okay, Linda?
All in the policy itself, if a vehicle owner wants to put CCTV in their vehicle, they have to have the requirement to actually put display notice that is CCTV in operation in that vehicle, and the onus is on that person then if they think, well, I don't want to go in that vehicle because there's CCTV running, basically. Okay.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. I think we've got to a point now where we need to go to the vote. I don't propose to read through again the key issues that Linda's obviously answered. There were a number of issues from a number of councillors. Unfortunately, Councillor Neil isn't here today, and neither is Councillor Watts, but correct me if I'm wrong, I feel those issues have been answered, and I certainly thank Linda and her team for such a comprehensive response, and obviously in bringing up this very lengthy policy document. So are people happy to go to the vote? Yes. So can we vote whether to accept the policy or not?
It is open to the public.
It's live streamed. It can be looked at afterwards, so that Mr. Patel is a member of the public, so I have no objection. Sorry, Mr. Patty. Sorry, my apologies. Just got a slight technical. Okay, we'll have to go. We've got a technical hitch here this morning. What we're voting on is that members approve the new policy and conditions to come into force on the 1st of January 2026, as is attached in the papers at Appendix A. So, can I ask Nicola to go around? Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Councillor Easton.
Support.
Councillor Edwards.
Support the policy.
Councillor Howarth, is he online? No. Councillor Lucas.
For.
Councillor McKenna. No. Councillor Neil. No. Councillor Newell.
Support.
Councillor Riley.
Support.
Councillor Rook.
Support.
Councillor Thomas.
Support.
That's all in favour, Chair.
Oh, and me. And me.
Oh.
Councillor Strong.
Oh, sorry, Jackie. Oh, how awful. Councillor.
Support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicola.
That's unanimous then?
Yep.
Yeah, of the members present. So obviously that policy now will go forward and will come into force on the 1st of January 2026. Thank you everybody for attending this morning, either in person or remotely. Say once again thanks to Linda and her team, and thanks for coming in to put your point of view. It's not too early, I suppose, but I obviously wish you a Merry Christmas and hopefully a Happy New Year, and Nadolig Llawen y blwyddyn newydd dda. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.